I think the thing that I can say that I hope that they haven't screwed up is that we have the lowest infection rate of any major metropolitan U.S. city.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And we have the third lowest death rate. And the death rates are all, just within a narrow band of each other. So we're happy with that.
All right, let's get some educational whiskey talk. It's
So we're talking to Matt Reynolds from Barbell Logic, by the way. Barbell Logic, online coaching, Barbell Logic podcast.
It's 11:15 our time, which makes it what? 1:15 your time?
Yep.
What's the whiskey of choice at 1:15 on a Monday?
I'm drinking Weller 107, Weller Red 107, Weller Antique, which is the same thing as Pappy Van Winkle, but it's not quite as expensive. Same juice. Hard to find still. You can't really get it, but I've got a pretty good collection up here. I've got maybe 350 whiskey bottles at home.
Oh, my goodness.
So you're in it. Jim's in it pretty good too.
But not to the tune of
I don't know
350.
anything.
I probably may have 20 bottles or
something. We went to an Irish pub. That's how we started when we drank a bunch of whiskey that day.
Exactly, yes. We recorded an episode of my other show that gets so neglected, less than obvious, at an Irish pub in San Francisco. It was the loudest thing ever.
It was loud.
I bet.
There's music. I think that was one point maybe a band playing. I don't know. We drank Redbreast 21, so that was amazing.
You recorded in the pub? No.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes,
we did
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
It did seem like a great idea at the time. And in terms of the whiskey and the food and the company, it was great. In terms of the audio quality, it was a challenge.
There is something to all of that. We do all our stuff online now, like all our interviews or conversations, but there is something too. And I was telling Jim when we first started the podcast, whatever, 2012,
13.
I was like laying back on a couch with like my feet up, and there's
in
something
a dark room.
Yeah, it's dark. It was kind of hot, and there's something to that. Like I really felt like myself.
Yeah.
Where now I've done this so long, I can talk and act like myself regardless. But where I'm like sitting up, I'm on a stool, I have this fancy headphone. I had to hold like a microphone in my hand.
Yeah.
Wires were all over me. We're playing Twister with wires. There's something there's something to going to like a pub or I don't know if you see, it's really popular now, but I watched a long time ago Hot Ones, the hot wing eating interview.
Yeah, that's always fun to watch.
Yeah, it's such a good idea because you're just sitting down, you're eating some wings. There's a little, uncomfort going on or whiskey going on or whatever it might be, and then conversations tend to be a little bit more raw than if you're, phone to phone sitting upright.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Yeah. It's difficult, but if you have other
the weird thing for us is that we started our podcast was definitely much more gritty, much more edgy. It wasn't dick and fart jokes really in the beginning. It was just more language and more whatever in the beginning. As the business has blown up and become a large business, I feel like I've really had to tone it down. More professional. So we I can't say this stuff, and our podcast is professionally produced now, and so I've got a great producer who. He listens to everything I say, and if there's something that is too offensive, he pulls that thing out, and then it goes to my editor-in-chief, and he listens to it again, and sometimes makes another suggestion. We pull something else out, and that's the nature of the beast, I guess, as you run a big business, is you can't say all the stuff you used to be able to, so which is probably okay. That's
kind of the topic of the day, too, is businesses, starting them, gyms, fitness, online, in-person, brick and mortar. How does something as simple as that happen? Is it from feedback you get in emails or shitty customer service reviews, or is it kind of an internal thing? Because I think I've gone similar things internally, and I just grown up, I guess, kind of on the internet.
We don't talk about poop on this show. We did talk about poop on the other show.
Yeah, and I don't mind talking about that stuff. Like I'll say butthole and we'll talk about some weird stuff. But like
we do too.
Yeah, but it was just more inside, like what am I representing of myself?
Sure.
Yeah.
Rather than feedback. I've never gotten feedback like, man, Mike, you're so nasty. Like no one's ever told me that.
We get some of that. I mean, at this point, the numbers are pretty good on the podcast, and so it's the number of emails we get that are I don't know what you call fan emails, but as well as occasionally the angry emails. We get both. But it's we get 20 positive emails for every one negative one we get. And then some of it's just like, look, I'm a 42-year-old businessman whose primary demographic is not competitive athletes. It's executives and, it's business professionals and soccer moms. And so the kind of crass humor, while it's still really funny and I still love telling those same jokes to all my buddies when I'm off the air, we're trying to feed the audience that it's just the niche that we found. And so I think it's one of the things about us at Barbell Logic is that our our niche very much is upper middle class, middle-aged people.
Yeah.
And so you have to wire it for that. It's not, you're not talking to a bunch of 23-year-old powerlifters
Yeah.
anymore, which is where I got my start. And so I have to remember that that's not who's listening to the show.
Was that another, thought out move, or like you said, did you just find that demographic? Because we do that a lot too. I don't even know who listens to us anymore because Jim and I have been so many different places, so many podcasts, and so whatever. And people have like grown up with me. I remember, if we go by my YouTube demographic, it used to be like 16 to 25, and then now that I'm 30, they're all 25 to 35. Like it's literally switched with us, which is pretty cool. But I never chose that. No chicks listen to me for some frickin' reason.
We're the same.
I'm trying to take the video off YouTube
It's
so
all
maybe
males.
chicks like my voice or something, and they don't know how ugly I am. I don't know why women don't want to listen to me, but it's 90% dudes, and it just happened. Like I wouldn't even know. People, like, I'm into branding and I'm into business and I read all these marketing things and blogs and I talk to some of the smartest people in the world and I'm friends with some of these people. I have no clue what I'm doing still. Like, if I hypothetically wanted to switch this podcast over and hit some older generation lifters, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you tend to find your niche often a little bit accidentally. I told this story when Jim interviewed me for the other podcast of, I started owning a gym. I owned a big powerlifting gym, and we won powerlifting gym of the year, I think in 13 and 14. And, it went great. But the reason we were successful is because we had really good customer service. We had a really clean business. The gym was super clean, smelled clean, and while we had a bunch of hardcore powerlifters, I think we had maybe 25 or 26 guys who could deadlift over 700 pounds there. The average guy deadlifted 500 pounds, and he was a 43-year-old business executive. And I'm in Springfield, Missouri, man. There's not enough powerlifters and strength athletes to pay the bills in a town like this. And so we figured out a way to market to the business professionals and soccer moms and that sort of demographic. And they trained like the powerlifters trained. Like they squatted and deadlifted heavy, and everybody did. Everybody in the gym did. And that made the gym successful. And then I started realizing, then if you got a power lifter who's a douche, then you can take him to the monolift and you can be like, I'm not sure you understand who bought this monolift. See that group of soccer moms over there?
Yeah.
They bought the monolift. You didn't buy this monolift. Like you be cool to them. And so you started to realize like, the demographic that has the money and also that will stay, it's not really about greed. It's about longevity. They stayed. They didn't leave. They didn't get, they weren't like, I'm going to do CrossFit now, or I'm going to do hot yoga now, or I'm going to bounce to the next thing. And so I kind of fell in love with training those middle-aged people. So when I sold the gym at the end of 15 and started doing online coaching full-time in 16, and for us, online coaching, we actually break down every video of every lift that you do every single day. So it's very, very high touch and depth. We pushed toward that demographic, that middle-aged demographic. They were the ones that had the money to support that higher price point, and it worked. And so here we are, launched it in early 16, January 16, and so we're going on a little over 4 years, and now we're pushing over 1,000 clients and 80 employees, and it's changed life tremendously for sure.
So how are things different right now? Are people, the majority of people that you're dealing with have access to weight still, or you have to figure out all sorts of workarounds and body weight stuff? And
yeah, it's a great question. It's both. About 60% of our clients train at home anyway, so we're very pro home gym at our company, and part of that is because we found that we were able to fill a niche where people who wanted good coaching but didn't have access to it. You think about all the people in rural areas don't have access to good coaches. If you're in Manhattan, there's great coaches. If you're in Austin, there's good coaches. If you're in Sacramento, there's great coaches. But what if you're in the middle of nowhere? What if you're an hour outside of Sacramento? You're not going to drive into Sacramento every day to train. Maybe you do on Saturdays or something, So for us, we very much promote home gyms. We love great black iron barbell gyms. Those things are great, but they're few and far between. And so about 60% of our clients train from home. The others train from gyms, and we've had to figure it out and make do. And so we kind of sniffed where this was going pretty early, and we had people try to get some kettlebells and dumbbells and bands and things like that. And but some of our clients are still training with body weight and 50-pound bags of dog food. And I think the difference for us is those people how do you make sure that they are still training and not just exercising? You know, like how do you make sure that there's still some linear progression or some progression there that, you know, if they do 3 sets of 10 with the 50-pound dog food bag, they're doing 3 sets of 12 next time.
Yeah.
And 3 sets of 14 and then a little heavier. And then they're, you know, and so the hard part is that we are so into pushing the weight up on the bar, a little bit of, incremental increases all the time. Add 5 pounds to the bar, add 2.5 pounds to the bar, make it a little heavier. Well, now you can't do that because people don't have barbells, they don't have weights. So you've got to increase the stress by increasing the volume, by increasing the frequency, by increasing maybe the density, how much work they get done in a specific amount of time. None of that stuff is optimal to us. We would rather put more weight on the bar, but what do you do when you can't put more weight on the bar? And so you do the best you can.
You attend a livestock auction and you buy a calf.
That's right.
What's the Milo?
And go old school.
Is it Milo?
What?
Carried a cow up a
Carried a
hill
calf.
every year?
I should forget. I don't think it is Milo.
It's something like that.
Is it Milo?
Milo? Milo?
I don't know.
Tomato? You carry a cow up the hill?
I feel bad now that
every
I'm
day?
mentally blocking on this because I had all that Greek mythology in college.
I probably had 6 years of Greek mythology
Oh,
in
you
my
probably
regular
did,
school.
yeah.
Or any of it.
And my best friend Omar's the genius and knows every Greek story ever, but I'm an idiot. So
Yeah. Well, you went to a Waldorf school and you guys like spent some time
All
with
of
the
it.
Doulaires, ancient myths.
you name it.
Yeah. Thing. Yeah.
You name it.
Yeah, my kid did that.
Yeah, I think it's Milo though. I think it's Milo carried a little cow. For those that don't know the history of progressive overload, a little Grecian boy carried a cow up a hill every single day from a baby to an adult. And when how heavy is a regular cow though?
Yeah, it was Milo. You're right.
Very, very, very heavy.
Pretty heavy, right? Even a baby cow's got to be like 200 pounds or something. And whatever, carry this cow up and down a hill. Cow slowly gaining weight. Kid slowly getting stronger. Bada boom, bada bing. You're jacked. What was the, I don't know if you want to dig into it. You can just ixnay any question we ask. What was the idea, business, or reason for closing the gym and going fully online and not maybe doing combo or
I
etc.?
mean, I can answer any question you ask. I'm
Cool.
transparent to a fault. I had two business partners, one of which founded the gym with me. Still a good friend of mine. We brought on a third business partner. He had come from a pretty wealthy family, and we actually worked pretty well together, the three of us. But that third owner didn't like having to vote on everything. And so his family made a little bit of a power play. And they had, again, lots of generational wealth there, and ended up trying to buy us out. We got great attorneys and got bought out for, we got paid well. And
Gotcha.
so it turned out good, and it allowed us to have the freedom to not have to work for a while and figure out what we're going to do. I actually didn't plan on switching to online. I planned on actually opening up a very high-end executive barbell club in my town. And I had been on the Art of Manliness podcast. Brett McKay from Art of Manliness is one of my clients and best friends now. Back then, he had just hired me as an online coach. I didn't advertise that. I just did it a little bit on the side. And it had gone really well, especially after being on the podcast, and so decided to give that a whirl essentially for a couple months, and with the focus being on unbelievable service. I mean, look, the market for online coaching is incredibly saturated. It's everywhere. Every Instagram butt model has their own line of online coaching, and for us,
I won't take offense.
could we actually provide a very high-end service? Was it worth it to have our clients video every lift they do on their cell phone, upload it to our app, break down every video they do, and really, so we were, I don't think there's anything wrong with programming, selling programming, templates, all that kind of stuff works just fine, especially works fine to the younger crowd that knows how to lift already. But when you're talking about dealing with those executives and soccer dads who haven't lifted since 1987 in high school, they need somebody to watch them squat. They need somebody to watch them deadlift because they don't know how. And so the programming is very simple in the beginning. It's just basic linear progression, and then eventually it has to get more complicated. So in the beginning, the form, the technique work, the technique coaching is the thing that's really where the bang for your buck is. And as time goes on and they become more advanced, and a lot of them become really, really strong at 45 or 50 or 55 years old, the programming becomes more important, and the form work probably becomes a little less because you're at that point, you're just tweaking the last 2 or 3%.
Yeah, I think there's personalities involved in all of it too, and I don't think it'll ever change, regardless of demographic, age, skill level. There's always a personality that just wants to read paper, follow paper. There's a personality that doesn't want to follow anything and just screw it. I'm going to go lift some weights. And then there's a personality that loves to be coached. I think there's some, and honestly, it's probably the best kind of athlete to coach. Someone that wants to follow the rules, and depending on genetics, will end up being the best athlete or get the most results. Is someone that likes to be critiqued left and right. I like being critiqued on like small details. If someone says like, "Oh, your squat's trash," I'm like, "All right, I don't know about all that," but but if they're tweaking little things and you can feel some progress, some people really enjoy that. So I think even at the, talking about your demographic or even younger dudes or the top in powerlifting, I think if you take the top 100 powerlifters right now, I bet you that we could find those personalities stuck in there somewhere too.
For sure.
When you're coaching someone and reviewing all their lifts, where do you draw the line between giving too much feedback and giving enough feedback?
Oh, that's a great question. So let's do a prequel question to that, which is how different is feedback online than feedback in real time and in person? It's very different, right? Yeah. So I can literally yell at you between rep 1 and rep 2 and change things, right? Knees out more, sit back. Mid-foot, get off your toes, like all those sort of things I can say in the middle of the set, and I can help fix you from rep 1 to rep 2 or rep 2 to rep 3. In online coaching, you can't do that at all. It's session to session. And for us, our feedback primarily comes in 2 different ways. So we either give typed written feedback, so we watch their videos and type up cues, or more often than not now, we actually do screen recordings. And so I actually record on my podcast mic like I'm talking on right now. I watch their video, I record me watching their video and giving them feedback as I'm watching it so they can see what I'm seeing in real time. The key in online coaching is to you can only give them 1 or 2 cues per lift per session to fix, and it has to be super memorable. So it has to be like because they're not going to get it again. They have to remember it a day from now, 2 days from now, 72 hours from now when they go back in the gym. It's not I'm yelling a cue between rep 2 and rep 3. I'm telling you on Monday, and I need you to remember it on Wednesday or Thursday, and that's a different deal. So very clean cues, like very clear cues. Oftentimes when we do the screen recordings, we'll do that screen recording, but we'll also even type a little bulleted point. Squat, here's a bullet, main cue. Press, here's a bullet, main cue. Deadlift, here's a bullet, whatever. And so that they remember. And then you'll see, it's cool because you'll see your clients like print, because so many of them train at home, they'll print out the cues and they'll put them like on the wall in front of the squat rack or on the floor in front of the squat rack. So they'll look at the cue right before they squat, or so they're actually listening.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know that particularly for new lifters, sometimes in an in-person coaching situation, you can definitely give them too much feedback and make them self-conscious, and then they just start doing things wrong.
Yeah.
In the effort to try to do things right, they just like, it's overload. It's like too much information.
There's a lot that goes into coaching that I don't think people talk about, and even just hearing you talk a little bit here, it's just obvious how many people you've coached, and some of it is trial and error, and I think some of it's inherent to being a coach, where like Jim just said, like some people have all this knowledge and they're spewing textbooks at you. Like, bro, little Jimmy just wants to squat to depth. Like, little Jimmy doesn't need to know what's going on, with his knee valgus. You don't even have to say knee valgus to little fucking Jimmy, You just put him in the right spot.
He doesn't know what it is anyway.
Yeah. Put him, and then you're gonna spend half an hour explaining it to him. Maybe 1 out of 10 little Timmys want to know that, but no one cares. He wants to,
especially when you can just yell knees out, Timmy.
Yeah. He wants bigger quads so they show at the bottom of his little short shorts at the beach, and he wants some abs. Like, give him what he wants, And then a soccer mom or whoever, they want to feel a little bit more empowered. They want to see the barbell go up. They want to, they want to feel confident, strong, and they want to fit in their little bikini when they go to the Ozarks. See, throwing into Missouri. Isn't Ozarks out there somewhere?
Oh, I'm smack in the middle of the Ozarks.
Oh, really? See, I knew it.
I'm in the mountains.
Jason Bateman and is it Ruth's out there.
It's nothing like the show.
Damn,
but the show's great.
The show's amazing.
That show's ridiculous.
I'm into season 3. I haven't actually finished it yet.
Good. Such a great ending. Season 3 is so incredible. So yeah, it's a great point, Mike. It's how many things can you remember and think about at one time? The answer is 1.
Yeah.
That's it. Not 2. So if you give them 2 cues on a lift, you can't give them 2 cues during the concentric phase. That doesn't work. You might be able to give them a cue on the eccentric, sit back, right? and a cue on the way back up, knees out, or, whatever, drive your ass up, hip drive, midfoot, whatever those things are. And one is it, man. And on a fast lift, like a power clean or a snatch, one cue. That's it. You cannot coach more than one cue on it. It's too fast. You can't think about more than one thing on a clean. It's impossible. And so good coaches, the best coaches, get their athletes, get their clients to move the way they want them to move in the least amount of words. And so one of the things we've done, we haven't talked about this. I don't even know if you guys know that we do this, but we launched a very in-depth coaching academy back in October of 2018. So we have something we call the Coaching Academy, what a lot of people call the Barbell Logic Coaching Academy. It's listen, I get it that like I would love people to sign up because it makes us some money. Regardless of that, it is the best educational tool that's ever been put out for becoming a great coach. But you will find people, Mike, that's exactly like what you talked about. They know everything. They have the knowledge for everything, but they don't have the experience of coaching. So then we'll do seminars and camps, and we'll teach people, we'll have them coach, and we'll critique their coaching. And it's just like verbal diarrhea. They're just spewing on people. There's too many words and they can't. And you realize like, oh, the people that are the best professionals at what they do can do it in the least amount of words or the least amount of work or the most efficient manner. That's really what separates the professionals from the Dunning-Kruger effect, from I think I know all this stuff, but I don't really know how to do it. And they just don't know.
Yeah, I think obviously you can learn and get better at coaching just as you can learn and get better at squats. But so much of it is kind of like, I don't know if it's genetic or personality. Like if you look at other sports and who are some of the best coaches, like they're insanely charismatic. Obviously the Michael Jordan documentary is coming out right now and is really popular. But if you hear like Phil Jackson talk and then they tell the stories of how he relates to each individual player, how he communicates with each player, how he changes his tone. It reminds me a lot of my high school basketball coach, which like all this stuff kind of hit. And so I'm down nostalgia lane right now. My high school basketball coach is coached for I don't even know 40 years now. He's probably only 50 years old, but he started coaching
when he was 10.
He started coaching when he was like 20. He played a little bit of pro baseball and then started coaching high school basketball and doing PE, and he's done it ever since.
Wow.
I think he's had like one losing season, regardless of the level of basketball or sport. Like it was a really small school, but like just insane statistics. And he's writing a book right now. And so he reached out to me a couple weeks ago and was like, hey, you want to write a couple pages in here just about your experience? Because I played with him or for him for 4 years, and then I coached with him for 5. And some of the tools, he's insanely charismatic. He can go to a bar and talk to any human. He can go coach anything. It's like I dropped out of college. I don't know really what it is. Communications major, and you have to go up front and you got to teach how to make peanut butter and jelly. Or something.
Yeah,
It's like stuff like that. Yeah. Like the tools like that. Like if you just do that naturally, our buddy Kyle, who's working on a project with me and Jim, he's like that. Like you can just talk to people. So sadly, like what I'm getting at is some of you bastards out there are going to be shitty coaches regardless of anything, because there's so many tools in reading humans and empathy and when to push, when to pull back. Like it's more being like a psychologist in a way, and being the interpersonal relationship and how to communicate with someone. And you said even online, like you can only focus on one cue, and then one cue doesn't work for everyone. It just doesn't. Like it might not click with Sally as it does with Stephanie over here. You're gonna have to, maybe you have to explain it to Stephanie, and maybe Sally, you just say, yo, midfoot, and she just gets it and she starts balancing her squat.
Yeah, actually, somebody that I always think about in that regard in terms of the charisma is Kelly Starrett.
Yeah.
Kelly knows his stuff for sure, and he's got so many reps in seeing different athletes in different situations and stuff too. But the thing that makes his presentation so good is that he's just super charismatic and he just connects with people just like that. And
there's tons. Jen Wiederstrom, another person. She knows a bunch about fitness and nutrition, and then you're like, yeah, duh. Like it makes sense for her to be on TV coaching it because she's the same way in person. Like she can control a room, she can control a one-on-one conversation, and she can relate to what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's the stuff that can't be taught, So it's just like you said, we often hire lots of coaches, but we often will hire on personality first. We can teach them the coaching skills. We can teach them the coaching eye. We can teach them those sort of things, but you can't teach personality. There's nothing about it. I mean, if you're extroverted and you're a people person, you know how to communicate well. We can teach you how to be a coach if you care enough to learn. But you see those people who are very introverted and they're socially awkward. They're a little bit on the Asperger's scale. You're like, hey man,
we're live on Twitch right now, and you just called out the entire audience. You just called out the entire audience.
The thing about, and actually we joke about, a bunch of my staff, I would even say, are probably on that sort of that autism scale just a little bit. But here's the thing. They're actually pretty good with computer programmers, coaching those guys.
Yeah.
And they're really good with writing articles, and they're really good, they're great content producers. And so while they may not be the one up at the front of the room leading the seminar because they don't have that infectious personality to do so, dude, they make us better coaches. Their eye is incredible. They question everything. They are uber skeptic. And I don't mean to a annoying sort of point, but you start thinking about those things that we all have talked about for years. Like, why do we squat? Why the midfoot? Why does that even matter?
Yeah.
And you start thinking about it and you go, oh, well, like we can't accept anything as true without understanding the why behind it. So rather than, I think about like the way I learned math growing up. Math is just you memorize all the equations, right? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. But I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, you lost me too.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing is like, as opposed to what we're doing, which I think is more like Newtonian physics or Newtonian math, where it's like we really understand the why behind what we're doing. And those coaches make that, they really flesh that out for us. And so one of the things I never thought about in my business, of course, somebody rings the doorbell, and it's probably the UPS guy.
It's Amazon.
It is, in fact, the UPS guy. And now my dogs are going.
Hopefully it's your little fancy German drink.
It's ridiculous every time I record.
No
All right,
worries.
So, sorry, we'll try that again. Yeah, I mean, they, I don't remember where I was. They turn us into skeptics, and you think about everything, and it forces you to think about the whys behind the house, and it's a big advantage.
It's funny how well people who are like that telegraph their personalities. My wife's a nurse, and she says if she comes into a someone's hospital room and the stuff on their like bedside tray is all organized in a particular fashion, she will say, "So what kind of engineer are you?"
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, "No, I'm not an engineer. You're an accountant then, right?" It's like, "Yep, I'm an accountant."
Yeah.
It's just like everybody has a way they like things, and it just telegraphs all that stuff to the world. And the smart, empathetic people are the ones that can pick up on, okay, this is how this person's going to want to be communicated. They're going to want a little bit too much information because they need it. They can't justify their actions unless they know too much.
Yeah.
And
then, Mike, you hit on this, and I don't even know if you recognize that you hit on it, but in that you think about in the documentary on The Last Dance with the Bulls, which is freaking amazing, Phil Jackson is this incredible coach, right? But who wasn't a great coach? Michael Jordan wasn't.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, weird. Why? Right? Well, like Phil Jackson was obviously a good basketball player. He played in the NBA, but he wasn't a great basketball player.
Yeah.
He was a mediocre professional basketball player, and he'd work his ass off for what he accomplished, and it made him a better coach. Jordan had a work ethic that no one has ever seen before or since, but he also got a bigger return on investment on that work. And so it didn't make sense to him why other people wouldn't work as hard as him, and he didn't get it. Like, they didn't get the same return on the investment. And I'm not making excuses for guys that didn't work as hard as Michael Jordan. I think, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. Like, that guy was my hero growing up. But the reality is he's a bad coach. And it's interesting in the fitness world. We see this all the time. And it started in my early days thinking about like bodybuilding, right? Like, people would look at like what Ronnie Coleman did when I was a kid, and they're like, well, I'm going to do what Ronnie Coleman does. Like, whoa. Ronnie Coleman has no ability to coach, right? And like, I think he's awesome. He's incredible. He's jacked. He's huge. But Ronnie Coleman's genetics and drugs, and like, you don't have that.
Yeah.
And instead, I want to find the bodybuilder, the power lifter, the strongman. I won my pro card in strongman in 2006, the same show that Brian Shaw did. We've been friends for years, and I turned into a little business owner, and he turned into the world's strongest man. But,
are you not 6'8"?
I wanted to find the strongmen and the powerlifters and those guys who were very mediocre, like painfully average, and worked their ass off to get good or even on the level of great. I remember the old stories of Andy Bolton deadlifting 600 pounds the first time he ever deadlifted.
Yeah.
Well, that's a guy I don't want to learn how to deadlift from. I respect the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
But like, listen, man, if you deadlift 600 pounds when you're 15, the first time you touch a barbell, I really am not interested in you teaching me how to deadlift.
Yeah, I made those.
It's just God-given ability.
Yeah, I made those same references to Jordan and Phil Jackson all the time about coaching, and for some reason, I think people understand it in other sports, but it doesn't click in fitness. And the same concept of, I always say it, I did this on Twitter like 5 years ago, and people were so mad. All you little pansies out there were so upset. That hard work doesn't beat talent. I have inside stories of people in the NBA that, and now you see it with like a guy like Dennis Rodman, who's in Vegas drunk all weekend, comes back and is the best defender in the NBA.
Yeah.
You're telling me he works harder than I did at basketball?
Yeah.
No fucking way. I worked so hard, and I barely made, I made JUCO basketball. Like there's different levels to this, and it's the same thing in lifting. Like, I understand you guys out there really put a badge on, like, man, I work hard. I did 5 sets of 6 on 315 bench.
Right.
Like, all right, bro. I'm not saying you don't work hard, but I'm just saying, like you just referenced, and Eddie Cohen. I love Eddie Cohen to death, but I think he pulled 405 the first time he touched a barbell.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Like, all right, motherfucker. Like,
The guy was built in like eternity past by God to be the greatest powerlifter of all time.
Yes.
But for some
And he
reason,
worked his ass off. It's not
sure.
that he didn't work.
Sure.
It's just that other people have worked just as hard as Ed Cohn and have worked harder than Ed Cohn and will still never be Ed Cohn.
Yeah. He's
That's just
5'3".
not possible.
right.
His arms are 9 feet long. He's got the hands of what's his name? The guy
Kawhi
from
Leonard?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
There's a
He's
picture going on the internet. It's Kawhi Leonard. I can't even tell if it's photoshopped. He's high-fiving. I'm obviously a basketball head. He's high-fiving, I think, Paul George, who's another 6'9" adult all-star male.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's holding his infant's hand on the it looks so insane. I swear it was photoshopped, but I don't think it is.
Well, I remember going to the Nike store in Portland years ago, and they had like Shaq's handprint and his footprint. It's like, no.
Yeah,
that's
different
not-
humans.
Yeah. This is a different species.
Different
This
humans.
is something else than
Yeah, but for
than
some
me.
reason, in lifting, you go to the guy with the biggest biceps to learn how to get jacked, and you go to the guy with the biggest bench to learn how to bench. But I'm 100% with you. Like, what about the guy? And the opposite of that, someone could have worked really hard, be mediocre, and not have learned shit. Like, you have to be open and receptive and want to learn. But I think we're on the same page where, like, like Phil Jackson was into it. He was into humans. He was into strategy. He was into pulling a team together. And Jordan had, like, the craziest drive just to be the best and do whatever it takes. So he might have not – and not that Jordan probably – again, doesn't have that knowledge to coach. That dude might know some X and O's that no one can understand. And LeBron...
No, he does. But remember, this is the guy who infamously doesn't make the varsity team his sophomore year.
Yeah.
Practices real hard in the offseason and comes back and isn't the best player on his team the junior year. He's like the best player in the country his junior year.
Yeah.
Now, think about that. I don't know. I've never heard of that story, right? Like, kids who are great basketball players at the high schools that I went to and the high schools I've coached at, they come out of 8th grade and they start varsity their freshman year because they're freaks. They don't not make the team. Was that you, Mike?
That's
at
me.
Your 1A school?
I was 5'8". I was 5'8" in 8th grade. Haven't grown since, but I was a savage.
But you don't hear of this. Like, here's this kid who comes out of he doesn't make the team his sophomore year. In his junior year, he's pretty much the best player in the United States.
Yeah.
That is a payoff on work that he's never going to get out of anybody he coaches. And so you're right. Hard work never beats talent, right? But here's the thing. Can't control talent.
Right.
You have no control over that, but you can always control the hard work. And that was my deal with the business stuff at this point. Man, I love to lift. I still love to lift. I squatted and deadlifted this morning. It's a blast. I love to coach. I love to coach more than I love to lift at this point. But here's what I really love. I love growing business.
Yeah.
Not to get, I don't care, dude. I'm not greedy. I don't get, I live in Missouri. You can live like a king on $100,000 a year in Missouri. That's not it at all. I love the challenge of growing business. I love the challenge of being able to provide well for my staff, for being able to reach, thousands and thousands of people. That's where my passion is. And here's the thing. I know there are people that are wired better to be better at business than me, but I'm not going to get outworked. I'm not going to be outread. I'm going to read more books. And I'm going to work more hours, and I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. because I love it, not because hashtag rise and grind. Like, let me show you how disciplined I am. I like getting up at 4:30 and working. I love it. And so that's the thing. And that's the thing with lifting or sports or whatever it is. Like, you can't control the talent, but you can control the work.
Yeah, in contrast, in somewhat sharp contrast to what you're saying, like I'm one of those people that absolutely has to have a deadline to be inspired, and it almost always has to be in the middle of the night. And I was actually talking to my therapist about this last time I had an appointment, and said I don't really know what to say about that. And it's like I really wish it was a different thing, but that's just kind of me. Like my brain doesn't focus until I have a deadline, until I'm scared about performing poorly, and I have a short period of time for inspiration to strike. Inspiration doesn't just strike me all the time. And he's like, well, why can't you just say that that's how you work?
Right.
Why can't you just build that into your life? It's like, okay, so I'm going to spend hours ruminating on some stupid thing in my head while I'm doing other stuff. Well, sometimes just dilatory time, just like bullshit stuff. And when I sit down to actually make something happen under stress, on sometimes duress, then it's all going to come together and it's going to be fine, and it's going to be largely better than somebody who had a better plan than me for the work. But my final product is probably going to be better. And if you give me one chance at revising that, that's probably going to be really, really good.
Well, I think that's the key to everything is just like knowing yourself, right? If you know the self-awareness, like you enjoy waking up at 4:30. Like I hate working up at 4:30.
Yeah,
if I don't get 9 hours to 10 hours of sleep, I'm like going through second puberty lately. then I won't be productive. And but if I get that sleep, I can do more in an hour than most can do in 10 hours. Like I can, like unlike Jim, I can just bang it out. Like it's sitting on my head. Like, all right, I got to write this thing for my coach and book. I just bang, like I'm done.
Yeah.
But if you know that, then yeah, you just set yourself up like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to sleep in today. I'll be working at midnight tonight, like, and that's what everyone does rather than forcing it. And, to translate to lifting or something, like you fucking think conventional deadlifts are so cool. Like, but you pull 800 sumo, like, man, it might just be time to pull a sumo.
Yeah,
like it's not that big of a deal.
You can train your conventional deadlift all you want to, but when you compete,
post what you want on sumo. Yeah, post what you want on Instagram, but it's time to pull 800, Timmy.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
Going back to business a little bit, how do you know, kind of like when to pull the trigger? You said you knew early. The gym thing seemed to kind of figure its way out because you're getting bought out, and it seems like good money, good decision. But then you go online and you said you kind of felt out that where your demographic was headed and where your kind of niche was in that online coaching, that you would bring the customer service and you'd hit this more executive level of client. Is that by like market research? Is that by reading a book? Sure. Is that by taking a survey online? Or is that just like a gut feeling, run after it, or trial and error? Because personally, I'm no business. I mean, I love business as well. I'm kind of similar to you, but I just bash my head against the wall until something breaks. Like, well, that's a stud. All right, here's some drywall. Like,
yeah, it's a great question. I think I found that niche at Strong Gym, at the gym that I owned, and it was because I don't feel this way anymore. As a matter of fact, I've sort of made amends in later years, but I got so burnt out and tired of the competitive powerlifting, strongman, bodybuilding athlete crowd. I was just like, and it was just like, a lot of those are great guys and great ladies, but a lot of them weren't. And, there's a lot of drama, and most of them don't have any money, and they bounce their credit cards and stuff. And I realized, like, oh man, 45-year-old dudes don't bounce their credit cards. They stay and they focus and they do boring training, and they can do linear progression and come in and squat every single session, and they don't complain. And it was just that it was almost like I needed to get away from millennials to find a group of people that you were talking about earlier, like some people just don't want to be told what to do. And I didn't want to work with that group of people, not because I need to be somebody's boss, because I can tell you how to get strong and how to get healthy. And I would, and I want you to be able to listen and love it. And so I think I just found that niche. I think part of it for me was in the natural progression that I had moved out of that sort of lifestyle. So I had been a competitive powerlifter since 1997, and I was an elite level powerlifter in 4 different weight classes, and then moved on to strongman and won my pro card. And then when the gym, I opened the gym in 2008. I stopped competing as a pro in 2009 because those things really I just couldn't do both. And I was never going to be, I went from being a really good, like maybe the best amateur strongman in the country to the worst pro strongman in the country. Now I'm competing against Zadrunas Savickas and Brian Shaw. Brian Shaw, who weighed 295 at the time, Brian Shaw, right? Not 450 Brian Shaw. And I was still getting my ass beat. And so I think for me, I was moving into that time of life anyway. I was married. I had kids. I was moving to that sort of like, I liked business. And so it just seemed like a natural fit for the niche. And it has been very profitable for us. And man, our churn, for your churn is what percentage of clients you lose every month. And in an internet business, 10% is kind of the number. If you lose more than 10% of your clients per month, that's like highway to the danger zone. But under 10% is pretty good, right? For the life of my company, we've been under 5%. And I know because I just did the end of month for last month. In the middle of COVID, we were at 3.3.
Yikes.
Now,
Wow.
why do investors knock on the door and want to give me millions of dollars? Because we got a 3.3% churn rate. And our people start spending $220 a month plus and on up from there. And so they don't leave. And so, again, what I found is that competitive powerlifters leave because they broke.
Yeah.
Competitive powerlifters leave their job. And I love powerlifting. I love watching Thor pull 501. That's freaking amazing doing that stuff. But that demographic is not a demographic to build $100 million business on. I know that sounds crazy because I'm talking in the strength world. Like, how is it even possible to do that? And the reality is that most people aren't thinking on that level.
Yeah.
Most people are just like, look, I just want to make a good living and train good people. And I think a lot of people would rather train the athletes and have the names and go to the Arnold and go to the big competitions, go to the IPF Worlds, and they get to be like, I'm their coach, like that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's just not who we are. I would just rather reach more people. I would rather, and not to put money in my pocket, because again, I couldn't care less. It's more about can I change the lives of more coaches? Can I change the lives of more clients? I really believe in this sort of gospel of strength training. I think it actually works. I think it changes people's lives. I think it refines people via voluntary hardship. I don't think it's the best thing in the world. I think there are other things that are more important. But I think it works generally really well for everybody. And so if I can convince 45-year-old soccer moms to do it, then I'm going to, because it's going to change their life. And it's going to make their quality of life better for the next 40 years. So that when most 45-year-olds start the long decline towards death in their mid-70s, my people keep their quality of life very, very high. And then one day they just die.
Yeah.
Which isn't that actually what we all want?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the goal.
And not only everything you said, I agree with, and I actually feel myself too. And maybe I'm just too naive and dumb, but I still hate everyone in powerlifting and bodybuilding. But I think,
say such nice things about you, though. So
fuck them all. I think I think the impact you have on those type of people. Not only are they more receptive normally to what you're coaching and teaching, but the impact is greater, right? Like the soccer mom's going from an elliptical a couple times a week to strength training. Like her improvement's going to be insane. Where if you take someone who squats 400 and you lead them slowly to squat in 450, like one, he's going to be ungrateful. He's going to find something to pick apart in my programming. Two, he's just a little snobby little bitch and going to hop on the next coach or program in 2 weeks, exactly like you said. And sadly, I am a millennial, and I do think it's entitlement, and I do think it's like a I don't know if it's the parents or I don't know what. I'm no psychologist or sociologist, but they're just like selfish and like you said. These people that have been powerlifting, they've been powerlifting 5 years, and now all of a sudden they're jujitsu, CrossFit, backflip kids.
That's right.
Like, all right, bro. Like that, you just honestly threw away the only good thing, in my opinion, of powerlifting, which is teaching you discipline over a long period of time. Like, yeah, my quads are strong. No one really cares. I don't have to use my quads in everyday life that much. Like, there's no real applicable purpose for me to squat 600 pounds in the year 2020. It's just me waking up every morning and squatting when I don't want to squat and forcing myself to do it. And you just threw that out the window.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the style of training, like the great thing about powerlifting is the way they train.
Yeah.
If you can teach 45, 55-year-old people how to train like powerlifters and strongmen and throw in the actual conditioning, and I'm talking about powerlifting today, right? Like in powerlifting, certainly like when Jim and I were coming up in it, it was like, it was the Dave Tates and the West Side. It was like, let's be 450 pounds and fat. And then like things changed over the last 10 or 15 years. But so, if you train like Chris Duffin, if you train like Larry Wheels, if you train like you don't have to be a big fat ass. Like you can actually get incredible benefit from squatting and deadlifting and bench pressing and doing the main lifts and a few exercises, accessory exercise, doing some body weight stuff. And you're right. It's way more beneficial. I think there's a really cool thing about taking an 18-year-old kid or 17-year-old kid and turning them into a starter from a bench player. That's cool.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what's more cool. I started coaching a lady several years ago. She was 79 years old. Her name's Sybil. Now she's 84. Sybil's had a double hip replacement, knee replacement. Her entire back's fused together. And all that, of course, happened before I ever met her. I trained her son a few times, and he's like 60. And he was like, boy, I wish you'd train my mom. I was like, I'll train your mom, And so, but she wouldn't come to a gym. She'd never been to a gym. She'd never touched a bar. And she'd never walked through the doors of a gym. And I went to her house, and she made me biscotti, and we dipped biscotti in coffee, and we ate it. And then I taught her how to squat out of her dining room chair that day. And I taught her how to do push-ups on a wall with her feet lined up at the place where I put the masking tape on the floor. And today, 4 years later, she deadlifts 155 for sets of 5. She squats, she bench presses, she overhead presses. She couldn't get off the toilet 4 years ago. She couldn't get in and out of her car. Her brain, super sharp, amazing lady, tells great stories, but her body was broken. And her next step was the nursing home. She had been a widow for 7 years. Most of her kids live in the Pacific Northwest. That was it. She was going to a nursing home. Yeah. And on a kind of a last ditch effort, her kids hired me to coach her. And it wasn't me. And by the way, Sybil's not the exception to the rule. If 80-year-old people will just do this, they'll get strong and their quality of life will get better. Sybil went and bought a sports car with a little spoiler, a little red sports car. She gets on and off the
Got
toilet.
a new boyfriend.
She's that's right, man. She's
posting booty pics.
Tearing it up. That's right. And that's Sybil. And so to me, listen, I don't get to train a ton of people in their 80s, but it makes a huge difference. That's the people's life that gets truly changed, and it's super cool.
I'm going to ask you to put a prognosticator cap on for a moment, and this is a 2-part question, and they're only semi related to each other. Question 1 is, what is gym training going to look like when the gyms open up again? Do you think?
Okay. And I don't get the second part. I got to give you part 1 first.
I'll give you part 2, and then you can do. Then you can choose whichever one you want to take first. And the other one is what is the future of online training? We have, apps and there are now devices that connect to phones, and they can give feedback on all sorts of things, and blood pressure and pulse ox and whatever. So.
Yeah.
Either one of those that you want to take first.
Yeah. So the first one, obviously, nobody really knows what society is going to look like when we all try to get back to normal. Today's actually the first day in Missouri. They've kind of semi-opened things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Today is the first day, and so we haven't been out yet. I sent my assistant to go wash my truck, which hadn't been washed in 8 weeks and was covered in mud, but because I figured the car wash was open. But we haven't been to a restaurant yet or anything. They're all operating at half capacity or whatever.
Yeah.
I think with gyms, I think they're going to struggle, and I thought gyms were going to struggle for a while anyway. I think that you're going to see a bigger movement towards training at home. If you have a phenomenal environment to train in, those gyms will always be successful, right? So if you have a place where people are supported and cared about, and those gyms that build confidence rather than rob people of confidence, I think they'll do well. I think that the low service cheap gyms will actually continue to do just fine as well. Maybe not the Planet Fitnesses of the world, because I think things have moved more, although you'll even see Planet Fitness starting to move more towards, there's more Planet Fitness with more kind of barbells and kind of CrossFit rigs and stuff that never been, because it's impacted the fitness world like that. So I think you're going to see one of two. I think you're going to see people who want to pay $20 a month, $30 a month for cheap. I just want to be able to get into a gym. Again, executives that travel all the time that want to get a membership to a 24-hour fitness or an Anytime Fitness, or there's a Lifetime Fitness. There's a million of them all over the place. I think you'll see them train there, and I think you'll see the rise of high service gyms. And it doesn't necessarily. I almost want to use the word boutique there, and that's going to turn off the powerlifting crowd. But the reality is, what we did at Strongman, we were a boutique gym.
Yeah,
we trained like powerlifters and strongmen, but it was impeccably clean.
Yeah.
It smelled clean. The service was amazing. Here's the towel. It was it was the service at a boutique personal training studio, but with the style of training that you get at Westside Barbell or a hardcore CrossFit gym or something like that. So I think you may continue to see that. I think that you're going to see a lot more people train at home. I think for us in my own programming, I think programming people to do a lot more body weight stuff and movement stuff, I think is going to impact my programming when I can bring back the barbells. I think that I'm never going to get rid of barbells. I think squats and deadlifts are the key. But I think that I had gotten away from things like, chins and dips and push-ups and pull-ups and lunges and kettlebell swings. And I think those things, while I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it, I'd still probably give 10 to 20% of my training time back to that. I think that people are going to want to do that. I think you're going to see a lot more people want to train outside. I think training outside is fun. And I think that people got to do that for the first time over the last several months. And so I think those are some of the things that you're going to see as gyms start to open. And I think those gyms that were the gyms that, again, not throwing any specific affiliate under the bus, but like the Gold's Gym type model, the $50 a month, the $60 a month, the $70 a month for kind of mid-level service, they're going to die. Because it's going to be $19 a month and no service, or it's going to be $179 a month and lots of service.
Yeah, I just saw today that Gold's Gym filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, and so I mean, I think exactly what you're saying, because they're going to have to streamline to reduce costs, and that you can't do high touch and low cost at the same time.
Yeah.
You cannot. That is correct.
It's the weird.
Yeah, you either sell double cheeseburgers for $1 or you sell filet mignon.
Yeah. It is just
that's it.
Gyms have just always been weird because more than half of them. I mean, I don't have the exact stats, but let's say probably 80% are literally just people paying a fee to feel good. They just want to feel that they have a gym membership and don't even use the bitch, right? I mean, that's how the goals.
I actually know the exact percentage.
I bet you do.
Because
hit me.
we pitched. We had a big corporate contract that we were closing a couple weeks ago, and I know that, and the corporation was paying for gym memberships, right? And 18% of people who have gym memberships attend the gym consistently. 18%.
What did I say? 80? Oh, right there.
Right? So it's crazy. And one of the things that the corporation loved about us is we keep compliance ratings and attendance ratings on on every single client. So we know exact compliance percentage at 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, and lifetime for every client. So if a corporation's paying for somebody and they're like, what's their attendance? They're like, 93% lifetime, right? And they're like, shit, you got that data? Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. And, and then the second part of your question, the online piece, I think you're mostly gonna see two directions there as well, right? You're gonna see a continued growth of purchasing online programming. I think that's going to come more and more via app and clean. It's going to be less Excel spreadsheets, and it's going to be more with like decent apps and whatnot. And it's going to be cheap, and it's going to be, and I really don't mean this in a negative way when I say it's sort of like the $1 double cheeseburger. By the way, sometimes I love $1 double cheeseburgers. They're delicious.
Sure.
When that's what you want. There's nothing wrong with it, right? And then I think you're going to see very high-end, high-touch expert coaching if you're willing to spend the money on it. And obviously the problem with that end, which is what we do, the bottleneck is with the expert coaches. You can't scale to $1 billion business because there's not enough expert coaches in the world, and you can't make enough expert coaches in the world to be able to reach the number of people for like high touch service. And so the reason we launched the Academy back in 18 was so we could help make more expert coaches, because we knew that was where the bottleneck was going to be for us. And so you'll see that certainly 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're going to continue to see this. You're going to see a lot of these third-party softwares that are going to do some of or lots of the technical coaching. I don't want to, as a guy who's a technical coach, I'm not going to be the steel industry of the 70s and act like it's going to come back and never, it's never going to go away. The reality is that the day is coming where, like, iPhones already have 3 lenses on them. Mm-hmm. They can read depth, right? So the day is coming when somebody squats and it's going to be like, your knees need to come back an inch. Like, you're going to be able to take your body type, the length of your torso, your femur, and your shank, and then of course for presses and bench pressing, your humerus and your forearm, and it's going to know exactly what your squat should look like. And you're going to video from the side, kind of like one of those, a coach's eye is kind of the archaic primitive version of that. And it's going to watch you squat, and it's going to say that was 91% correct. If you get back on your heels a little more, your knees get out a little more, bend over a little more, whatever the thing is, you can bring it up to 100. And I think that, but I think that, again, Mike talked about this earlier, the thing that can never replace, or what, man, we are like, I'm going to be long since retired or dead, is it can't replace the psychology portion of what we do.
Yeah.
When somebody pays you $200, $300, $400, $500 a month to coach them, they're not just looking for technique, and the technique is a big part of it. They're looking for a friend. They're looking for a psychologist, a psychiatrist, somebody to be a counselor to them, and an algorithm on a program can't do that. And so I certainly think that's coming. I hope that businesses like ours who are kind of on the cutting edge, that we'll be able to use those programs to augment our coaching. But I think there are going to be a lot of people left out in the cold. You know, I think you've already seen this with some of the other companies that are offering sort of AI programming. And I think as that algorithm gets cleaned up, programming is, if you figure out programming's simple. It's actually not very complicated, right? And by the time you get to be a guy like a Larry Wheels, who's the best of the best, his programming's probably got to be pretty complicated. And I think, Gaglione trains him and probably does a pretty good job. But like, how many people need that sort of complicated programming? Not very many people.
Yeah.
So programming doesn't have to be that complicated. What's complicated? Technique. And what's more complicated than technique?
Humans.
Psychology. That's right. They're human.
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's going.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think not only with the psychology, and I don't know the depths of your brand or what you guys do, but other people, obviously community in person, I agree 1000% is going to be key to any gym in person, is going to be community and environment. Mm-hmm. But I think there is some of that online. And obviously I'm biased because I stream on Twitch and stuff like that. But like, the community you can build through something like that, or going back maybe 5 years as a fitness Facebook group or support group, or book clubs, right? Like,
and go all the way back to the turn of the millennium, where everybody was in a bulletin board forum kind of thing.
Forums.
That's
like
right.
I think that kind of stuff will always be true, regardless of what you said, regardless of any kind of AI video camera telling me my sumo isn't good or whatever. I think there's always going to want to be human interaction. And that's where I am even torn on my own personal preference on whether I like to train at home or train in a gym.
Yeah.
What's something, again, business wise, when you're looking on, like, obviously technology's coming and you're staying up to date on that. Maybe something actually comes out of, no offense to all my scientist friends, they're all very smart and like to teach me many things. I learned everything from them, so this may sound wrong. But maybe something, earth-shattering comes out of the science world and you change up your methods a little bit, which is probably unlikely, but new information comes out, and most of it, whatever, beside the point. What are things, when do you know to kind of maybe evolve or scale your company, or when to kind of just like keep doubling down on what you're doing? Like you said, your coaching academy, that sounds to me like you're just doubling down on what you're doing. Like, we have the best coaches, I want to make more good coaches, and we're going to continue to do this really, 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 really well, right? McDonald's. Okay, we got a single burger, we got this Big Mac thing, and now all of a sudden they got fucking pastrami and fish sandwiches in the year 2020. They're really expanding, in my opinion, in a bad way. No one wants a fucking fish sandwich from McDonald's.
Especially not with pastrami on it.
Yeah, or whatever.
Another story altogether.
Yeah, so when do you know, or when you're in person, when with your brick and mortar, similar things, right? All right, we got the strength and conditioning equipment. When do I go buy the TRX, or when do I start a yoga class or something like that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, I think ultimately it all comes down to how you're going to define success. And again, for people that know, like, profitability is not where it's all at. But if you're doing a business, profitability has to be part of that. It has to be, right? Yeah. And so one of the things about expanding, if you have 25 clients or 30 clients, and you're in a 10% cash burn, so you're spending 10% more than you make, and you increase to 60 clients, that's not getting better.
Right.
You just get a bigger cash burn. 10% of 60 clients is more money than 10% of 30 clients, right? And so that's a big part of it, is that people try to scale. It's like, it's people that have babies to fix their marriage. That never works, right? Like, if you have a non-profitable business and you have 30 clients, going to 60 clients or expanding doesn't make you profitable. So you better figure out the profit margins first. And it's very different if you're online or in person. The Strong Gym, for us, we were decently profitable, but not nearly as profitable as I ever wanted to be, because we were a 15,000 square foot freestanding building that we bought. It was like running a spaceship, man. That, like, my electric bill was $3,000 a month, and I'm in Missouri, And so for us, if I ever ran an in-person business again, which I won't, but if I did, I would look at profitability per square foot. How much profitability can you get out of a specific client? One of the downsides of CrossFit is that CrossFit has a massive footprint per client. Somebody's going to do 50 yards of walking lunges. That takes up a lot of space in your gym. And one of the things I love about powerlifting or strength training style training is that you can put everybody on an 8x8 platform. You can put a bench on that platform. You can put a barbell on that platform. You can put a weight tree on that platform, or by like an RML6 that's got the weight storage on it. And in an 8x8 platform, you can have 1 to 4 people training in a single 8x8 spot and never move. And so you can extract profitability out of that. And so if you figure that out, okay, I've got 3 racks. They're all profitable. I can go to 6 racks. Online coaching is a similar sort of thing. Like for me, I did online coaching for an entire year on my own. And I had about 125 clients, and I was dying because I was breaking all their videos down. And I said, I got to figure out how to scale this thing. And I figured out how to scale. I'm not going to give lots of details for how I figured that out, but I figured out how to scale. I had a good system in place. And I'll tell you this other thing people don't want to do is they don't want to get to systems and standard operating procedures. I spent a ton of time writing technical writing about how we do everything. And let me be clear, nobody wants to do that. I didn't want to do that. Yeah. Technical writing about how to on-ramp a new client, that stuff sucks. But here's the deal. I don't have to on-ramp anybody anymore. Right. I got 80 employees. I got people to do that, right? And so because I spent the time to write those systems, I don't have to micromanage, right? You can have control or you can have growth, but not both. So if you're somebody that has to have control, it's fine. You can have a nice, profitable, small business. It's never going to be big. You can have control. You can do just fine. For me, I wanted to grow. And so I realized I had to hire good people and have good systems. And when you have good systems, you don't have to micromanage. And so it allows you to expand and find. And for me, I knew the thing that made us profitable was having expert coaches. And so for the thing like the academy, when you talk about doubling down, I had to have expert coaches. My business model doesn't work if I don't have expert coaches. So I had to figure out a way to make more expert coaches, hence the academy.
Have we had any questions on the stream? Anybody say anything that...
I don't pay attention to these nerds. Someone asked how close, and I think maybe they're talking about like holographic type stuff. How close do you think we are to coaching, video coaching during lifts?
Oh.
Like a little Obi-Wan Kenobi hologram, yeah. and you're just sitting next to him?
We can do that now, not with a hologram, and of course you can do that live.
FaceTime?
Here's the downside. There are lots of businesses. So it's the Peloton model for barbells, right? So Peloton model for barbells. So on the surface, that sounds like a great idea. Let me tell you why I don't think that's a great idea. That said, somebody's going to figure out how to make that work, and they're going to turn it into a multi-million-dollar business. I'm convinced. Let me tell you why I don't want to do that. Because the advantage that I have in online coaching my clients is that they get to train when they want and where they want, anytime they want, any gym they want. I've got clients in Singapore and Hong Kong and whatever. I don't want to have to get up and train my clients in Singapore at the same time. And here's the deal. I'm sure coaches in California are significantly more expensive than in Missouri. I'm $200 an hour, which makes me the most expensive coach in all of the state of Missouri for sure, right? You can hire me for an online coach, and I'm $219 a month. I'm basically $200. What you would pay me for an hour of coaching in person, you can have me for a month as a coach. You can't have me because I'm full, but you can have a great coach for a month for that. So the cost benefit is so much better. Whereas if I have to get up and coach you on a screen live on a Zoom call or a Skype call or a Peloton type device, you're going to pay me $200 an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
I can break down your entire set of videos for an entire, think about how many hours, like you go and do a 2-hour workout, Mike. How many minutes of that 2-hour workout are you actually lifting heavy weights that need to be coached?
Yeah, maybe
about 6 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 4.
It's not long.
My work capacity's not there, buddy.
And so I can coach at your entire session in 4, 5, 6 minutes.
Right.
And you still did a 2-hour workout, but I didn't have to coach all your warm-ups. I don't need to watch you load the plates on the bar. I don't need to, all that kind of stuff. I can coach the lifts of the heavy stuff just fine in 4 to 6 minutes. Whereas if I have to coach you real time, that's going to be expensive. So until they figure out the AI version of that, and we're a long way away from it. I hope it comes sooner rather than later. I think it's actually a good thing for the industry where they can actually have an algorithm coach your technique and your form. There's no way to get around that, right? So the next best option is that Peloton model where maybe I'm coaching 20 people. It's a class-based barbell model where I got 20 people, and then you're on a timer. Like, okay, Mike, you go. All right, Mike's done squatting. Jim, you go. All right, Sally, you go. And I'm just, that's the only way to do that. Otherwise, and it's going to be difficult in a barbell model.
Yeah, I think it's just so different, and even the term coach is just thrown around everywhere, and I don't want to throw bashes at companies or anything, programs out there either, but like what you do is coaching. You're watching people, you're analyzing not only what they're doing psychologically, but the sets, reps, schemes, the progressions, and how their body's moving. Like other people literally just write numbers on a board and cheer you on. Or
it's online programming. It's online programming.
Right. Or
That's
even online programming, because I do a bunch of templates. It has progressions, it has purpose, it has intent, rather than me giving you a workout. And Peloton is just a workout. They're going to scream at you. You're going to sweat. You'll burn some calories. Is it better than doing nothing? 100%. I actually think Peloton's genius, not only for business model, but even for just exercise, getting people excited about being in the community, getting their heart rate up. Great things for it. But barbell making progressions, again, for like someone like is it Sybil? Like someone like Sybil, like the progression there is what matters. She can't get off a toilet. Now she can squat. Like that actually affects her life. And not that heart training won't. Cardiovascular exercise is great. It can help your life and allow you a longer, better life. But it's just so different. Even all the Instagram people that were bashing all the time. And again, I make fun of it because I ended up, I guess, being 1/10 of what they are, but like I'm just not showing you a booty workout where you're kind of sore at the end of the day. We're trying to get you from point A to point B. There's a real goal involved, and that's where it just gets more complicated with real coaching or barbells.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, thank you very much for your time, man. It's been really good. Where can people find you and your business?
Business is Barbell Logic. If you can't find us, you don't deserve to.
There you go.
You can. Our SEO is pretty good. So get on Google. We're Barbell Logic on all the social media. So Instagram. We've got a great YouTube channel. I'll just say this. I've done the podcast. Now the podcast has done very well over the last several years. I can't believe people want to actually listen to me on this stuff. Podcast is a logical, systematic progression through strength. So if you start listening to the podcast, I'd start at episode 1 and start working your way through. There are now 320 episodes, so that's pretty daunting. I think the best place to start is the YouTube channel. We've got great YouTube videos. We've got a very professional videographer and post-production team. We were lucky because we made pretty good money on the online coaching first, and then we were able to build the audience second, which is the opposite of what most people do, right? You get your audience on YouTube, and then you try to monetize the thing. So we were able to put some good money behind the video production quality. So all those basic, like how to lift videos, they're 3 to 5 minutes, and you can learn everything you ever want to know about the lifts and the programming. You can do that on YouTube first, the podcast at Barbell Logic, and then of course you can find out anything about our online coaching service or academy at barbelllogic.com. So we're easy to find. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and all that fun stuff.
Awesome,
man. Thanks for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, please give us a rating and review. Brand new episodes every single Wednesday, everywhere you want to find us. I am Silent Mike with 2Ks everywhere.
I am at Jim McD on all the social medias. You can follow the show on largely on Instagram at 50% Facts, where percent is a word and 50 is just numbers, and also the website following that same pattern of letters and numbers. And we'll talk to you next time.